Welcome back to BNG Hockey, where it's always black and gold. Bruins fans got a nice surprise today when Ondrej Kase took part in full team practice, and he could be nearing a return to the lineup. Let's talk about it. This was Kasha's first time with the team since January 16th, where he took a high hit from Miles Wood in a game against the New Jersey Devils. Now, he has had a long history of concussions, so you have to assume that once again this was a concussion problem, but they were calling it an upper body injury and overall being pretty vague. And at one point, Cassidy said, "Don't hold your breath on Kasha playing at all this season." So this is a huge development, but you know that the team is taking this very seriously. At 25 years old, with that extensive list of injuries, you have to take it slow and you have to make sure this player is 100% healthy, because at some point you have to start thinking about the long-term effects on him as a human and not just as a player on your team. So it's great to see Kasha back. He was smiling, happy to be back on the ice with his teammates and getting closer to playing in an actual game again. Now, it does seem like he could get into action here before the playoffs to give him a couple games to get ready to go. He's likely going to be a lock in this roster, although they have quite a few players in that bottom six, and we're going to talk about that a little later in this video. But it does look like Bruce Cassidy said if he plays in a couple of these practices, feels good, that he could be back in the lineup either Monday or Tuesday. Now, before we get into where Kasha will fit into the lineup and how he'll likely affect the Bruins roster moving forward, I wanted to remind fans what we're getting from Kasha in his career so far, because we haven't seen him play in quite some time, and he hasn't been a Bruin for that long. Ondrej Kase is a 25-year-old right winger. He's played in 206 NHL games, scoring 43 goals, 54 assists for a total of 97 points. When he got traded to the Bruins, he played in 6 regular season games, scoring 0 goals and getting 1 assist. Then in the playoffs for the Bruins, he played in 11 games, once again getting 0 goals, but adding 4 assists. And this season, he only played in 2 games. He got hurt in the second game, but he has 0 goals and 0 assists in those 2 games this season. So he's yet to score a goal as a Boston Bruin, but he is definitely a guy who can score some goals. In Anaheim, this was a player they were getting excited about. He was a 7th round draft pick, so he really came out of nowhere, but he's never been afraid to shoot the puck and use his speed, and suddenly those pucks were going in. He was getting some looks in the top 6, getting some power play time, and this was a player on the rise. But anytime he would develop his game further, he would once again go down with another injury. Now that got him traded to the Boston Bruins in the package with David Backes and a first-round draft pick as well as a prospect. That's a pretty good haul for Kasha. Part of that was also getting rid of the Backes money, but now the Bruins thought they solved their second-line problems. I thought they did too. I thought this was an underrated player, and due to his injuries, he was getting overlooked, but when he's in the lineup, he could be a stud. Unfortunately, that didn't really happen here. He continued to have injury problems and never really found his full game. He was getting chances. You can go back and look. He was still shooting the puck. He was still using his speed. They just weren't going in. And now that we've seen what a line of Craig Smith, Taylor Hall, and David Krejci looks like, maybe we were expecting a little too much from Kasha. He's not a superstar. He's definitely not Taylor Hall, but he's still a very good player and one we should be excited about. And at 25, he's still fairly young and could be getting better. In fact, if he's playing in our bottom 6 instead of our top 6, I think that's something to get excited about. Now we're getting more and more depth. As I said before, I thought this was a guy who would solve our second line problems. And now if he's playing on our third or fourth line, that's overall team depth. And we're getting more and more of that after some great trades by Don Sweeney and some development from other players. Now we have guys like Charlie Coyle, Nick Ritchie, even Jake DeBrusk playing in the bottom 6. That's a really solid bottom 6, and Kasha's another great addition. If he's in the Bruins lineup, I put him up there in the top 3 fastest skaters on the entire team. So that's something that you desperately need in today's NHL. And if it's another guy who's not afraid to put pucks on net, you gotta think eventually he's gonna get a couple. And those come up big in the playoffs. All you need is 1 or 2 goals to really make an impact on a team. Now let's talk about where he fits into the lineup. Bruce Cassidy had some interesting things to say after he was asked about where Kasha might play. Today, he practiced on a line with Sean Corelli and Nick Ritchie. He was also in the same spot as Jake DeBrusk, so they were both taking turns playing right wing. I would prefer Jake DeBrusk to go back to the left side. Recently, and almost all year, he's been playing right wing, but I just think that doesn't really work for him, and I think that's been a big part of his struggles this season. So maybe now that Kasha's back and he is a natural right winger, Jake DeBrusk can move back to the left side. they can play around with this quite a bit. I would personally like to see a line of Coyle at center with DeBrusk at the left and Kasha at the right, and then move a guy like Nick Ritchie down to the fourth line, maybe play him with a Curtis Lazar, and any mixture of Sean Corrali or Trent Frederick or Chris Wagner. But they have so many options in this bottom six. Guys are always getting banged up in the playoffs, so as I mentioned before, it's great to have all of this depth with the team, but I do think Kasha automatically makes the lineup when he's healthy and will be in there unless he's really struggling. You love to see his speed. You love to see guys who put pucks on net. I think that's been a big part of why Craig Smith has had so much success, because he's a guy who's not afraid to shoot the puck, and that either sets up other guys for rebounds or chances, or he's putting pucks in himself. And with Kasha's speed, you gotta think he'll be able to work well with the younger Bruins bottom six that is having more and more speed with guys like Lazar and guys like Corrali and guys like DeBrusk. So I'm really excited to go with more of a skilled bottom six than a tough bottom six. You still have some tough guys. Those guys can hit. Obviously, if you're playing a Nick Ritchie or a Trent Frederick, those are guys with size. So you aren't going to get pushed around too much. But I like the model of like a Tampa Bay Lightning where they have some big guys, but they also have some skilled guys down there who can still put up points and make plays, even though they're traditionally bottom six guys. Overall, I'm excited to have Kasha back. I think he's a great add to the bottom six. I was really excited when we traded for him. Thought he never really got a fair enough shot here in Boston. He was getting used to playing with the team with new line mates, and then he got injured, so that's really what fans remember, and I don't think they're giving him too much credit. He's barely played. Now he's more comfortable with the boys. He was playing on a line with Nick Ritchie. They played together in Anaheim, so maybe they have that chemistry. He can get that going. He's more familiar with the Bruins players. He's great friends with David Pastrnak, so he's probably a lot more comfortable being a Bruin. So hopefully with that and his health, all of that adds up and he's able to jump right into the lineup and produce. And one last interesting little nugget here, he is an RFA after this season, so he's controlled by the team and he has a reasonable cap hit of $2.6 million this year. I don't see him making much more than that due to all the injuries and the lack of stats that he's put up. So maybe the Bruins are even able to keep him long-term on a cheap deal if things work out here in the last couple of games. That's all I got for you in this one. Let me know your thoughts on Ondrej Kase returning. Were you excited to see him back? Where do you think he fits into the lineup? And what are you expecting out of him the rest of this season? Leave that down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big like. And if you haven't already, subscribe.